Sorry about that. All right. If the system is that corrupt that it would actually facilitate or protect the people that have done harm to children, then that system should be brought down. Pam Bondi came out and said if we prosecuted the people that are in those files, the whole system would collapse. And the answer should only be then let it collapse. Because how could you possibly, in this day and age, think it's acceptable to protect people simply because you're worried about the system crashing, or perhaps maybe you're just upset or worried that the payoffs that you've been taking for years to look the other way is going to stop paying to you? One way or the other, the files need to be released. The people that perpetrated the crimes need to be held accountable. And nobody needs to be held more accountable than the tangerine twat waffle in the Oval Circus, because it all begins and ends with Trump being prosecuted. You cannot sit here and have somebody brought up 38,000 times in a file and still be looking past them and wanting to talk to somebody else who was only referenced 1,000 times. Obama was referenced, 2,000 times because of just clippings and reports and back and forth about how his strategies are working or not working, but no files showing actual direct contact. But yet somehow, some way, we want to ignore the fact of how complicit the tangerine twat waffle is, and bolster the idea that we have to keep this system in place or operating as it is because we have to somehow morally keep the whole system going. If the system's corrupt, it should be gone. We shouldn't be debating it. I can't imagine why anybody would stay silent about this. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to be just outraged by what's going on, by this hypocrisy. But the reality still remains. Children are being hurt. Children are being victimized by adults even to this day. It might not necessarily be the tangerine twat waffle now, but somehow, some way, that tangerine twat waffle has helped facilitate a ring of misconduct. And now, when we have a chance to actually tear it apart, Pam Bondi wants to stand in the middle of it and say, well, we can't bring anybody to justice. We can't prosecute anybody because then the whole system would come down. What kind of system are you protecting if you're sitting here and thinking it's acceptable in any way, shape, or form to protect these people? If they're in power, they should go. If this was a hoax, then why are so many different countries bringing forward allegations and investigations and police action towards key figures? This is bigger than everyone realizes. This is not just a matter of abusing children. This was abusing children and then blackmailing people within these files in a way to get them to control power. And that is the whole premise that I've had for a few different posts and for a few months, is that Trump isn't president despite the fact that the files exist. Trump is president because the files exist, because he, as well as Maxwell, had all of this information and knew exactly what was going on for a very long time. The truth of the matter is this: we are watching a system that has been constructed and corrupted for a long time. Trump has put key people in places not because of what they can do, but because of the proclivities and things that they've done, and he can control. He has control over Congress because of the things that he knows that are in the files. And as soon as those files are released, as soon as everything is unearthed and we actually start to see who's actually in those files, his power is going to crash hard. Nobody's going to be supporting him once they realize that all of the people that he had as supporters were just people that he had under his thumb. Because one thing for certain, Trump learned from Roy Cohn, and Roy Cohn was just as complicit in blackmail as Hoover was. And I know that's going to rock some worlds and peoples, but Hoover was infamous for blackmailing and keeping his position in control, because Hoover had so much dirt on everybody that nobody wanted to remove Hoover as the director of the FBI for all of those years, despite all the allegations, despite the corruption, despite everything that had happened. And when he died, the very first thing that everybody did was the Secret Service stormed the building of his office to get to the files to see exactly how much dirt he had on everybody. Now, that being said, we are watching hold on for a second. No, I don't think leverage. Sorry, I was just answering. No, I don't think leverage is unique to Trump. I think Trump has basically been doing what other people have done for centuries. As I said, Hoover was king of leverage. Roy Cohn is someone who was an attorney, a mentor to Trump back in the day, like the early 80s, like the 80s. It might have been 70s as well, but 80s and early 90s. Roy Cohn taught him all of the things that Trump is doing now. He taught him what leverage was. He helped him get tax credits for all of his new buildings in New York, which put Trump on the map as far as being so reputable. The reality is this: Pam Bondi coming out and saying that if I prosecuted all the people on the list, the whole system would collapse is horrific to think that she knows exactly who's guilty. She already knows everything and she's staying silent. And the question that I've asked to the air and no one can respond is that why would a woman who absolutely knows everything that's in those files would still be protecting somebody that she knows has done whatever? Even if Trump hadn't done anything, right? Let's just imagine Trump is straight as an arrow and he's only using this information as blackmail to control the Republican Party and people around the world. He's still doing that. So even if he wasn't in the files, but he has control of the files and he's using them, he's abusing power. So why would a woman, because if everyone wants to acknowledge that women have more sense of morality and are supposed to be more of the decent type of folks, and men are more like pigs that will take opportunities and run with it, okay, then if Pam Bondi knows all that this is going on, how could she possibly allow this to continue? And the answer is simple. Pam Bondi has either been groomed and is a part of those files as a victim, and she doesn't want that information let out to the public, or the payoff that she's getting is got to be catastrophic. I mean, the amount of money that lays, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who used to pucker up to Trump in any way possible, has come out so against him that she's basically alienated herself from her own party. Thomas Massie, Republican of Republican, has alienated himself from his own party because he feels and sees what's so vile about what's in these files. And yet he's willing to be just ignored by his Republican Party to stand up for these victims. Yet Trump has never come out and once showed any kind of remorse, any kind of sympathy, or any type of like acknowledgement that these victims exist. But yet somehow you've got Pam Bondi, who's completely blind to it all, has seen the files, has seen everything that's going on, have heard the victims talk, have heard all of it like this, and yet she's somehow still defending Trump like as if he's the Messiah. He's no prophet. He's for profit. He's been bought and paid for by every foreign adversary that seems to have evidence or proof that he's done something wrong. And I'm sorry to say, but after everything has happened, the allegations that the Tangerine Twat Waffle had given a mouth hug to a individual called Bubba starts to make me think, with all of these allegations, that Bubba was a boy. Okay, because in certain Jewish religion, like Bubala, perhaps maybe somebody misheard it. Maybe it was written wrong, but Bubba could be Bubala or boy. And the reality of it is this, is that we're watching all of this, and we've got a Department of Justice who, instead of actually upholding the law and upholding the justice and making sure that the people of this country are representative and protected, they're protecting the people in that file. And here's the thing that I don't understand, and I did a video about it. Why is it that if we have a 6 million files and all of this terabytes of information and video, this, that, and the whole 9 yards, we got all of this, why is it that all of this evidence was good enough to charge and get Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein for their crimes, but yet there is absolutely no evidence to charge any of the co-conspirators or anybody that they were trafficking to? Because unless I'm misreading something, trafficking would imply one person selling something to another person. Now, we're going to just keep this clean and safe because I don't want to get yelled at. But, let's just say, for an example, I wanted to traffic this from one person to another. I'm not trafficking it to myself. And that's exactly what they're alleging. They're alleging that there's no co-conspirators. There's no criminals. There's nobody that is guilty of anything in these files. But yet somehow those files were good enough to get Epstein tried once and he got a slippery deal, tried second and got prison time. And yet somehow no one else, Bueller is it's a reference, whatever. Let me see what some of these questions I got here. Actually, someone says Roger Bing's 5314. He's only talking about this because the media is talking about it. No, actually, the fact of the matter is media has been silenced. Media, above all else, media has literally been sued into silence because every single time the media, like Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, ABC, NBC, CBS, they're all sued for letting anybody speak up against this. And that's the point. When you are so desperate to try to control what people are thinking and seeing and hearing, that you're going to sue everybody for exercising the First Amendment rights, but yet for some reason, he had no problem with the Second Amendment unaliving the children. It's funny. And also, by the way, this is probably an inappropriate joke, but hey, let's go for it. Why is it that he seemed to have no problem with the Second Amendment unaliving children, but as soon as anybody was trying to, like, question his abilities and this, that, and the other, he had no problem trying to temper that Second Amendment. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, whatever. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he wants to allow children to be able to pray in school, which is fitting because here's the deal. Right now, as it stands, thoughts and prayers are the only things that are protecting children when they go to school every day, because apparently the Second Amendment, unlike children on Epstein Island, can't be touched. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Alex Jones was right? No, not in any way, shape, or form. Okay, he tried to sensationalize on people's death. That's immoral. Okay, we're trying to, even this platform here, when I'm talking to people, I'm literally trying to get people to stand up and make their voices heard, not try to belittle the fact that you had people that were unalived. Because why? Because other people had to have their Second Amendment. Okay, the fact of the matter is that in 1996, the United Kingdom outlawed guns across the board and school shootings stopped. Boom. End of sentence. Yet here, we can't touch the Second Amendment, but you're okay with children going to school with just thoughts and prayers. That's going to protect them. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. I suggest that thoughts and prayers should always be a part of every child. But when you're using that as a way to protect them from bullets and bayonets, that's a problem, okay? The fact of the matter is that this country was so hell-bent on changing the law about women's right to reproduce that they took away Roe versus Wade. And if you didn't know what Roe versus Wade was, it was a law that was set in 1973. 7 Supreme Court justices ruled that women have the right to choose what to do with their body. And 49 years later, 5 men and 1 woman decided to take that right away from women, which proves that women never had equality in this country, because how do you take rights away from another group if they are equal in any way, shape, or form? We can talk about that another time. But either way, it doesn't change the fact that the very Congress people and judges who ruled to take a woman's right away because they want to protect the life of children don't seem to have a problem with letting children go to school without protecting them to make sure they get there safe. And of course, Congress people who were so happy to overturn Roe versus Wade are the same ones who voted to not feed children when they go to school. But yet, we don't want to talk about that. No, don't talk about that. Let's talk about the Epstein files. Oh, we'll talk about the Epstein files, but let's talk about what Bill Clinton did. And Bill Clinton's like, well, let's just open up all the files, let everything come out, and if I'm guilty of something, so be it. And then they were like, hey, let's have it out in the open. But by all means, no. This is the only country where most of these crimes are affiliated with, attached to, in the whole 9 yards, and we're the only country not actually having an open investigation on the Epstein files. Other countries have not only removed people out of parliament, key figures, look, the whole 9 yards, but yet this is the only country that's sitting with their hands on underneath their ass and just standing around doing absolutely nothing while the rest of the world demands transparency. And of course, we have the foggy haze of the tangerine twat waffle in the Oval Circus. Left-wing nude. And he gave me the finger. Aw, I'll cherish it always. Thank you. Well, the land of the free, home of the brave, if it's based on leadership, then no, because we got Trump who decided to, hey, why not? Let's put my name on a memorial for an actual war hero who died in the line of service of his country. I'll put my name on it. How delusional does that have to be? How delusional do you have to be, detached from reality, to think that your name deserves to be on a building that was supposed to be a memorial for someone who lost their life in the line of service to this country? John F. Kennedy, the Kennedy Center, in case you guys didn't know what I was talking about. And again, like I says, Pam Bondi went on national television and says, if we prosecuted the people in the files, the system would collapse. And I still am asking everybody, now that there's a whole lot more people here, why not let the system collapse? Why would you want to keep a system that would protect people that violently hurt or abused children? Honestly, why would you want to keep that system in place? And it's amazing how so many people that support this administration want to turn a blind eye to the fact that they are supporting a group of individuals protecting child predators. Okay, this isn't a question, it's not a debate, because Epstein was a predator. Okay, the people in those files are supposedly predators. You cannot say that the men that were redacted aren't perpetrators, and then at the same time say all these girls that are in these pictures too, they're victims. Because if there's victims in those files, then there's perpetrators. You can't have one without the other, and you couldn't have convicted Epstein for the charges he did, or Ghislaine Maxwell for the charges of hers, with those files, and then turn around and say there's no evidence of anybody else. It's hypocrisy, and the fact that every other country is now waging an investigation on the files because they don't want any piece of this in their system, and yet our system is just sitting there and allowing it to happen. This country used to claim that they're number one. Well, they're not number one in justice. Because the only justice that seems to happen in this country is the one that involves locking people up that have no means possible to fight back and then deport them out of the country. Because this country was supposed to be going after the worst of the worst, and yet somehow the crime rates in this country haven't lowered. And then why is it that the ICE agents that are doing this God's work, as most MAGA will say, they're doing God's work, they're doing a great job, they're making America great. Why is it that they're inflicting more harm on the people that they're supposed to be policing than the crime that the person is committing in the first place? Okay, because you've got people committing a misdemeanor at best. It's a civilian, it's a misdemeanor, there's an argument there, but one way or the other, it's no worse than a misdemeanor crime. But yet you got people committing felonies, because breaking people's windows, causing harm, breaking ribs, choking people out, those are all felonies. So you're using felonies to try to uphold a law that's only a misdemeanor. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And let's not forget the fact that our U.S. tax dollars were funding terrorists on these streets. Because here's the deal. These people are going in and terrorizing neighborhoods. They are inflicting harm onto people, and they've unalived at least 2 U.S. citizens on the streets of this country. And all of that was done with taxpayer money. Congratulations. Aren't you proud? They didn't want you to spend your taxpayer money on SNAP benefits. Remember how everybody was outraged by SNAP benefits being funded by taxpayer money? But then all of a sudden they were all outraged. I don't take my $300 a year in taxes and put it to the people so the kids can eat. No. But are those same people upset about the fact that they actually paid for a hit on a U.S. citizen? I'm just wondering, because your tax dollars went to do that as well. And then our tax dollars seem to go to everyone other than, United States citizens. Our tax dollars go into the federal government. The federal government then uses that to subsidize other countries, like the blue country and other countries. The blue country gets $8 billion a year from us consistently, and that funds their health care as well as their university. But what does the United States get? They get the shaft. They get, you know what? The government is doing to the United States people what the Epstein files allege Trump did to Sasha Riley. That's all I can say. Trump freed Maxwell. Well, isn't it funny? I'm sorry, but I don't think, hypothetically speaking, I don't think that Maxwell was working for Epstein. Because the fact of the matter is, and I brought this up in another live, and I'm going to do it again really quick. Who owned hotels, casinos, beauty pageants, Teen USA, Miss USA, Miss America pageants? Who owned all of those beauty contentious? Who owned modeling agencies? Who owned the hotels in other countries? That individual was the one that actually had all of the campgrounds for you to be able to find all of these kids. And that person was friends with Maxwell long before she was actually involved with Epstein. So when it comes to it, do you think it was Epstein that was farming these girls and finding all of them? Or do you think that Maxwell was using the campgrounds of an individual who owned all of those hotels, beauty pageants, the whole nine yards? And the fact that our school yearbooks are tied to a company that used to actually film and record and do a lot of business for Epstein, basically those yearbooks were all menus for kids. You know, like, oh, okay, so go to Arizona and 5212. Yeah, I want that. Is that what they were doing? Because it just seems odd, you know, but whatever. We won't talk about that. Doesn't change the fact that we have a government system right now where they're openly saying if we convicted everybody that was in the files, the whole system would collapse. That is horrific, to say the least. To say that they are openly acknowledging the fact that there are people that are in those things and that the damage it would cause if they did it. Do you realize the King of England stripped his brother of all of his royalties, money, wealth, the whole nine yards, took away his titles, everything, took away his Fergie's titles as well. And now Prince, or I'm sorry, Andrew, lives on a little shack on one of the king's properties as a commoner, and is still facing legal scrutiny. So is it still a Democratic hoax? Doesn't make much sense, does it? Other countries are all opening up investigations. The Prime Minister of the UK might be removed from office just because of his affiliation or possible allegations of being tied to something that the ambassador to England was, or the UK was doing on Epstein Island. But yet somehow Trump is still sitting in the Oval Office, still smiling and shitting his pants. Amazing. I can't imagine the audacity of the thing that this guy is allowed to keep operating the way that he is. And the funny thing is that most of you are sitting here pattering out and making Jones and stuff like that and saying Alec Jones was right. No, Alec Jones wasn't right because he was suckling up to all of this. And the fact of the matter is this, okay? His First Amendment rights were impeded by the fact that he was using his keynotes to slander people. Trump isn't winning. How do you think Trump only wins because he cheats? The fact that he's so convinced that the 2020 election was rigged is because he's rigged elections himself. He probably put some kind of fix in on the 2020 elections and just assumes that if he lost, it's because not because his people are incompetent or because he didn't have Elon Musk to help him back then, but the fact is that the Democrats must have fixed something to be able to make it work. He's so convinced of other people doing wrongdoing because he's the one that's always been doing the wrong. Trump is good. Good for what? Fertilizer? Yeah, give it a couple of years. He'll be there. And if Trump was so desperate for a Nobel Peace Prize that he went and campaigned for it, why doesn't he shuffle off this mortal coil and go campaign at the Golden Gates and beg for his position there? I don't think he'll get it, but it'd be fun to not have to deal with him, because all I know is that if I say the statement on any platform everywhere, God, I cannot wait to read his obituary, you all know exactly who I'm talking about. Wally Winker says, say something intelligent. I don't know. I don't know. Your mom loves my tongue. Seems intelligent, right? Okay. Anyway, back to this news. So then, and here's the thing. This is the first U.S. president who's ever really come out and flat out been pushing for diversity. He literally chastised the halftime show. Bad Bunny's this and and we're going to do our own special one where on the side, and only 6 million people are going to watch it, and 145 million people are going to watch Bad Bunny. Do you realize Bad Bunny's message was clear even if it was in Spanish? Because he spoke to the camera and says, I'm only here because I never stop believing in myself, never stop believing in you. It will get better. That was amazing to see that. All of his haters, all of his lovers, everybody that wanted to see him or protest against him were there, and he operated and performed for everybody because he didn't play this one side against the other. He was trying to pull everybody together. That was amazing, okay? And while that was going on, we've got injustice in the government system. We've got quite literal Republicans refusing to acknowledge the wrongdoings of this president and allowing it to continue. That's not a matter of, oh, just, keep your mouth shut. That becomes complicit. Okay. This whole thing that, Blanche said, well, it's not illegal to party with Epstein. Well, it is if he's, doing something inappropriate to a child. If you see people doing something harmful at one of Epstein's parties and you don't report it, then you are technically breaking the law. Because guess what? Being there and allowing children to be harmed is absolutely not only immoral, but it is against the law. You cannot just walk past as someone is being unalived or brutalized, this, that, and the other, and not step and help. There is a civic duty. I apologize. I'm just reading everything really quick. Stranger Days, nice to see you, man. Thank you very much. Prove he was there. I don't know. Why don't they release all the files so then the evidence is there? That's what I don't understand. How is it that literally you could be presented all kinds of evidence and you will deny it? Trump just has to say it and you believe it, like as if like fledgling ducks walking around waiting to be fed. You gotta wait for the tangerine twat waffle to spit out the story to you, and then you believe it. But if someone shows you videotape, like when you saw Alex Padidi be killed, or you saw Renee Good be killed, you had to come up with some excuse or some justification or some reason. And that last 5 seconds where you see her car take off, you assume that she was gunning it, but they had already proved that she already had 3 bullets in her head, and that it was just a knee-jerk reaction. Her foot hit the gas hard, and she took off. But you guys don't want to talk about that because you want to ignore it, because it seems so fitting for MAGA to want to believe the lie so much. Because if they don't believe the lie, if they took a moment to step back and go, wait a minute, that's not true, then they would have to sit there and realize that, oh my God, we've done something wrong. And you can't, and most people can't do that. They don't have the physical strength. She didn't hit him with the SUV. That's the thing that's another thing. She didn't hit her with the SUV. There was another camera angle where you can clearly see he was off to the side, and all of the holes in her were on her left side. That's not in front. If he was actually bared down and like this, there would have been more in the front, and there wasn't. It's a basics. And and the funny thing is this country is amazing for blaming the victims. You guys. How many victims have to come forward before you'll actually believe that Trump actually did something wrong? Because when Bill Cosby was alleged to have done something, the first 5, 10 women came around, everyone, nah, there's no way. Even though it started to percolate, where like, yes, 15, 20. By the time 60 people came forward, all of a sudden everybody was like, oh shit, he really did do something wrong. Harvey Weinstein, it had a couple of hundred actresses had to come forward before you finally believe the actresses. Why is it that in this country the victims are always denied, they're always ignored, and they're always thought to be lying? And you would actually allow yourself to think that someone who's mentioned in the Epstein files more times than Jesus is mentioned in the Bible may be guilty of something. You know what I mean? Like, Harry Potter was only referenced in the 7 books that he was in 1,900 times. Trump is like mentioned 38,000 times. I mean, that's not a character in the book. That's one of the main villains. Like, I'm sorry, it's obvious. And the fact that Pam Bondi wants to sit on these files means either she is complicit in it because she's been taking bribes, or she's in the files and she doesn't want the world to know that she was an actual victim. Because we all know that victims are victims and you can never make fun of them, and I would never. But we also know there's a certain type of victim that would actually use what happened to them to their advantage. Again, no shade, no hate, but the fact of the matter is that people have profited off of the pain and suffering that they've suffered for because they found a way to do it. You don't think Pam Bondi could have done it? What about the fact that almost every single person that's in his cabinet have been ex-pageant girls or beauty models or whatever like that? I mean, Hasselbeck, the woman that was trying to get Letitia and Comey on indictment, she was a real estate attorney and she was an ex-pageant girl. If you can't take me serious, that's cool. I appreciate it. I love this shirt. I went to Washington. I wore this shirt. I went to New York. I went to all kinds of places. And I have people stopping me all the time saying, that's an amazing shirt. It doesn't change the fact that you are watching the Department of Justice defend a allegations or an actual PDF file. They are all protecting people in those files instead of actually upholding the law. Thanks for digging the shirt. I appreciate it, guys. For all the good positive, and listen, the thing of it is that my lives, just so we get a little bit of transparency, my lives are about sharing ideas, thoughts, whatever. I come up with ideas. I don't expect to be anything famous. I'm not looking for that. I'm just airing my voice. I would like to build a community. I'd like to engage with people and share ideas because that's what it's supposed to be. We're all supposed to be using our gifts to whatever way possible. And to me, reaching people, talking to people, sharing ideas, going for the whole, that's amazing. Trump 2028. All right, let's just do math, people. Trump is 79 years old right now, almost 80, okay? By the time 2028 comes, he'll be almost 84 years old. And then after that, he's supposed to run for president. He can barely walk now, and you think he's going to run then. That makes no sense. He's given up golfing because his ability to move is now restricted. That guy loved golf. There's a joke about playing with balls, but I don't want to do it. Look, he's scared. Why would I be scared? Trump in 2028, it would never happen anyway. You got the Constitution. You know what? I said that, but you know what? Why not? Trump 2028. It might happen because you know what? What we've seen so far is that Trump 2028 is just as long a line a list of things that he can't do, but he did anyway. He can't do that, and he does it anyway. Trump can't just deport people out of the country without due process. Watch me. Hold my beer. Trump can't violate the Epstein Act and refuse to release the files. Watch me do that. Trump can't manipulate and affect the stock market. Watch this. I'm going to impose tariffs on everything. Every single time he does something, and I hear one of these political experts go, he can't do that. Well, he's still doing it anyway. So, he can't affect the midterms. Really? Because now he's talking about nationalizing the voting thing and taking the control of voting in each state and making it a federal thing, that the federal government will actually be in control of that. So the question of he can't do that seems to ring true. He can't do that. But guess what, Clarence? He still does it anyway. Okay? I mean, he is literally the coincidental Karen, because he literally just hears the Supreme Court say something and he does the opposite. Why? Because no matter what he does, right? Nobody holds him accountable. You can't withhold funds to SNAP benefits during a government shutdown. They set those funds aside just for the SNAP program, and he did it anyway. First president in history to actually withhold money from children so that they could eat. But he did it. Number one again. He can't put his name on the side of a memorial for John F. Kennedy. He did it anyway. He's breaking the law. He's not allowed to change the name of the Kennedy building. He did it. He's still doing it, and nobody's gone back to actually take his name down off the building. So the whole premise of he can't do that doesn't seem to fit anymore. So when you say Trump 2028, sure, why not? Because honestly, there's a lot of things he shouldn't have done, he couldn't have done, and really shouldn't have done, but he's doing them anyway. And the whole reason why, I'll bring it back to it, because he has the Epstein files. Because anybody that can get away with the amount of shit that he's got must have so much shit on everybody else that he is absolutely controlling both wheels. He's got Mike Johnson on a short leash, and I think